together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, but maybe not for always, because Danny and I just had a very interesting conversation.
You're just putting that straight out.
Straight out there, man.
Get there. Okay.
But yeah, so this is the Signal Watch. We are doing a Superheroes Everyday podcast with your Superheroes Everyday host, Danny Horn.
Hi, I'm Danny Horn from superheroeseveryday.com. It is a comedy blog about the history of superhero movies, starting with Superman in 1978 and then moving on chronologically from there. And I talk about pretty much everything I can think of: the story, the script changes, the cast, the merchandise, what's happening in comics, what's happening in movies that year, ton of stuff. Please come and check it out.
It's great. You're wrapping up Swamp Thing here over the next few days, and then taking a break, and then
diving into Superman 3, which is the next thing standing in front of me.
I'm really looking forward to the post about Richard Pryor as a general.
It will be. Yes, it will be. There's going to be a lot of that. But today we have brought you here to discuss Inhumans.
Marvel's Inhumans. If you haven't listened to the first episode to hear us try and figure out what was going on here, go back and listen to the first one and then rejoin us.
I have a previously all prepared. Gonna do that?
Oh yeah, man, do it.
All right. Dig this. A family of rich, spoiled moon mutants are the rulers of an unstable and unsustainable civilization the size of Bitter Lick, Iowa, which is based on a clearly oppressive caste system in which poor people who don't have superpowers are forced to spend their lives underground digging with their fingernails to find crystals that will help the wealthy 1% turn their children into super mutants. There's an inevitable and sorely needed military coup, and the royal family's college-age niece, in a panic, gets her magical teleporting dog to scatter the family around Oahu for some reason, where they instantly start breaking laws and assaulting people. So, the driving question of the series is, how do the people of Hawaii come together to contain this dangerous situation? And that is basically all you need.
That is the most accurate possible description of Inhumans.
That is what I do.
We covered the first two episodes in the prior podcast. And now we're moving on to whatever happens. And I just fast forwarded through 3 and 4 to try and remember what happened during those two. I finished through the series last night. I will say this. The thing that I got was this show had a lot of rewrites at some point. And because people's weights change, like their BMIs change as you're watching it. And which is not something I normally notice. And the guy Dave's hair changes.
Yeah. Dave kind of goes through.
And even Medusa starts getting a little mullety in a couple of episodes, and then it retracts again.
All right, we can't We gotta just focus on the problem at hand. Now, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
This is a 4-part podcast series that you are just determined to obfuscate that situation. We're talking about episodes 3 and 4. Ryan has spent the last week telling me like, well, maybe it's like we'll do 3, 4, and 5, whatever. Like, dude,
I'm good with containing to 3
we're
and 4
doing it
today.
We're doing 3 and 4
because that's all I fast forwarded through. So.
Excellent. Oh, good. All right, then that gets you. Now, I realized when I listened to the last episode that I called it the Inhumans the whole time, which it is not. It is just Inhumans. And so to make up for that, I need to just refer to it as Marvel's Inhumans for the rest of this episode until I get bored with it.
My journey since the last episode has been feeling incredibly guilty about talking about Serinda Swan's appearance with close cropped hair. And I'd like to walk that back.
Oh, dang. Did you offend her?
No, maybe. I think she's fine. Not caring.
I'm pretty sure she's okay.
But yeah, I still think it was such a bad choice for the show that I think I overcompensated.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth on what was going on with Gorgon's feet, and I have come down solidly.
You're so right. You're so right.
He was wearing shoes.
No, that's absolutely. I'm glad you're bringing up old business. Yeah, because when I was looking, this week, I was just like, oh my god, he totally is just wearing boots. I can't believe that I didn't clock that immediately. But you're 100%. And I thought like there's one point during these 2 episodes where he like puts down his foot and like blows everybody in front of him away. And I was like, well, but of course for that shot, he has to have hooves, right? That's his whole deal. No, he has boots. He is not the shadow of a hoof. So
you never really see a hoof after the first scenes, nor do they, but they keep discussing his hoofs for about half the series. And then his power clearly changes to be, he just stomps on the ground and it goes boom.
And things happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, you are totally correct on that. Now, we got some listener mail, which I'm very excited about because it's the first time. It's the first time that ever happened to me. But there's one of the commenters, several commenters, like left some questions on my blog. And Agonios asked a couple of questions that I think are worth delving into. So Agonios asks, why are they in Hawaii? Which is a complicated question.
Mm-hmm. So you had told me you thought they were doing it for narrative reasons, which I
think there's a factor. There's a narrative factor to it.
Yeah.
But not the whole thing.
Like they were trying to keep them, like if they were dropped in North America, now you have to worry about somebody being in California, somebody being in Maine.
Yeah.
Oahu is a containable place.
Yeah, that Marvel wanted to have them somewhere where where you just don't have to worry about them interacting with any of the other superheroes and none of the other, they have no plans that involve Hawaii. So yeah, just put them on an island somewhere and then we'll think about it later.
The other bit that we went in once Danny and I were talking about this, I have a few friends who work in the film industry, and I basically was like, did some digging to find out like what was going on with the tax situation. I'm aware there are large tax incentives for companies to produce because film productions bring in a lot of people and they spend a lot of money when they show up. They need to buy things. They need to feed people. They need to house people. They need to clothe people, all of those things. And
for possibly a couple months.
Yeah. They were they thought this show would spend somewhere around like $150 million a year in Oahu. Which, aside from tourism, there's not, I guess, there's probably some agriculture. I don't know anything about Oahu. I'll be totally candid.
Yeah.
But what I read was the year they filmed this, they had a 25% tax, essentially a tax rebate, not a rebate on their taxes, but if they spent a certain amount and they paid all of their taxes, they would get back 25% of all of their expenditures that were Hawaii based.
Wow. Okay. So that's a serious.
Yeah. So
I'm so glad that you noticed. Yeah.
So they spent like $60 million on, the way it was told to me is that they spent $60 million in Oahu, they would get back $15 million. Stop asking me math questions. It was the follow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I couldn't understand. I was like, well, I don't understand. Like, I understand it's like good to. I thought they were talking about 25% of their taxes.
That's how I read it too.
Back. No, they get back like 15 million.
Way more.
Yeah, and so you can totally see like, and this is why states are always fighting over.
Yeah,
and it becomes a big political thing. Like
Georgia really wants to do a thing, and everybody,
Texas for a while played that game, and then they decided we don't need these Californians coming in here and telling us what to do, and so we no longer have any of that stuff. And
that's why like every hour-long genre TV show takes place in Vancouver.
Yeah,
everything everything on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah,
all of that is always Vancouver.
Yeah, New Mexico apparently has really good tax stuff. So
nobody wants to go to New Mexico.
Well, if they're saying it's Texas and generally in something like Preacher was filmed entirely in New Mexico.
Oh yeah.
So that was that likely like they probably because this show clearly every decision was made on how cheap can we make this show.
Yes.
And it was going to be cheaper to film somehow in Hawaii than the mainland, which is remarkable because I don't know if you've ever been to Hawaii, but a can of Spam is like $12.
I know.
It's like so expensive. But someone ran the numbers and decided this was going to work. So,
the funny thing for me about the budget is like everyone talks about when they talk about Inhumans, they talk about the budget all of the time because apparently it's behind like every terrible decision. And they act like the budget is a medical condition that we cannot cure. Like it's just a thing and no one has any power over it. Like, no, this is ABC and Marvel and IMAX. And they're making Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So it's not like they don't have money or they don't have money coming in. But they could spend more money. But they just I think they had no confidence in the show, and that's why they were like, we're gonna kind of cut costs on this.
Yeah, it was, I you can see it in everything. Like they always talk about, it's Hawaii. Hawaii is beautiful. It's like good luck knowing that because the things that you see in Hawaii are the Inhumans sets, and I noticed something on that last night. But
good.
I'll talk about it again in the later episodes. But but then they're always like around like rusted hangars and like cargo stuff. And I'm always like, I was just
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And it's like, look, Hawaii is a beautiful place, but it's rough on metal. It's rough on like, everything.
You got sand everywhere. Yeah.
You got sand, you've got wind,
There's
got
a lot of rain
constantly. Yeah. It's hot. Like all of that's just like aggressively rough on materials. And so everything consequently looks like it's about to be abandoned or was just abandoned.
Right. Probably the latter.
Yeah. And anyway.
So that's the Hawaii story. There's one more question, which I did some research on. Again, from Agonios. The magical teleporting guy who is a wall. Agonios asked, I can't get past the fact that he has a family. Are they also walls? Are the kids just little retaining walls? Is being a wall just his job or is it his species? Which is a very, very good question. So I researched that.
Please, I have no idea.
His name is Eldrak. And in the Marvel universe, actually his full name is Eldrak the Door. He is a large head-shaped construction who can teleport people if you walk into his mouth, like his mouth closes and then you get transported, which is awesome. This character first appeared in Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four number 577 in 2010. And I don't know if you're familiar, Ryan, I don't know what your relationship is with Jonathan Hickman's work. But this is one of it. So I looked at FF 577. The explanation is, once a politician for a minor faction, he became irrelevant during unification. Now he serves as the threshold between this place and all others. That's the explanation. He was a guy. His job, he was redundant. Now he serves, there's no explanation. Now he serves as the third. The Fantastic Four, they do not ask any follow-up questions. Just read
it's ideas.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. So he's in, like in 2013, so when the Inhumans, when Marvel comics were desperately trying to make the Inhumans into something to support the show. He was used in the Infinity crossover event in 2013. And then the big one that really tied to the show is the Inhumans versus X-Men crossover in 2017. They had done like an Avengers versus X-Men crossover years before. Unbelievably successful because they were great characters and good people were writing it. And so they were trying to do it again with Inhumans. They're actually trying to do it again right now, I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What is it? It's
the Axe thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's Avengers, X-Men. Oh, they're doing it with the Eternals. Yeah. So right now, because of the Eternals movie, they're trying to make the Eternals a thing in comics. It's exactly what they did with Inhumans, where now they've built a thing where it's Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals AXE. And right now at the comic book store, that's what you see. Super annoying. So that's where Eldrak comes from. And so the answer to all further questions about him is that Jonathan Hickman thinks that he is writing like epic mythology, but mostly he's just kind of positing things and then telling us how important it is. He does not sweat the small stuff.
My exposure to Hickman did what was the whatever event, the ripoff of Crisis.
Yeah.
Was
Secret Wars?
It wasn't
Secret Wars 2 or
it wasn't. It was called something else. It was called like Big Event or something like that.
What, that was when they blew up the entire Marvel universe and pretended that
it was Crisis in Marvel.
Which they studiously walked back by the end of the event. Yeah, it turns out everything's fine.
My exposure to him was, oh my God, you're Jeff Johnsing this so bad. Like you've got a like this crazy setup and you have no idea how to finish this. Like I was absolutely baffled while I was reading it. And then it had that like crazy like modern writing where it's just people shouting various things from panel to panel.
Yeah.
And
that's one thing, Hickman. Yeah. The crazy thing about that whole thing, I believe that was Secret Wars 2. The entire thing, they like destroyed the entire universe and canceled every book and started every book over again. And the whole reason for doing it was they just wanted Miles Morales to be in the regular Marvel, like him and his family. Yeah,
I kind of picked up on that.
The whole thing. I mean, so Crisis on Infinite Earths also, and like every Crisis since then has been based on Hawkman. And we have to clear up. It's very, very important in DC to clear up what happened with Hawkman. And I believe for Marvel, all of that Secret Wars event was just about bringing Miles into our version of New York City, and it worked. He is. So there you go.
He is.
You do this enormous event. Problem solved. You can't. Anyway, if people have more questions about Inhumans or Marvel's Inhumans, I should say, you can post on Twitter for Signal Watch or Superheroes Every Day, or leave comments on the blog at Superheroes Every Day. We will answer your questions about Marvel's Inhumans. And that is, I've never been able to say that before. And I'm so excited right now. This is great. One more thing before we get into the episode. This is important. The ratings. We got to talk about that for a second. So the first 2 episodes, the ones that we talked about last week, were shown together. It was like as a 2-hour event. That got like 3.8 million viewers. By the next week, which is where we are right now, they lost 1 million viewers. Episode 3 is down to 2.8 million. So we've said goodbye to 1 million people right now. And then between 3 and 4, they lose another 500,000. So it's like there was like basically like 3.8. 2.8, and now episode 4 has 2.3 and still falling. That is not the bottom yet. So that is where we are right now, is between 3 and 4. This is the free fall ratings wise. So
that all kind of adds up. I remember like the IMAX thing, and we talked about this last week. Like they had that whole promotion, and no one showed up, I guess, at the IMAX to go see it. So how does episode 3 start again? I have vague memories of Miles running around in the woods, and
episode 3 begins with one of the Inhumans in prison, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a good start. Black Bolt has been arrested, He is in prison right now, as he should be. And they decide to put him in Gen Pop because he's not talking, because he can't. Black Bolt can't talk unless he wants to kill everyone he's talking to. So he's not talking, and so they're like, well, maybe if he gets a little rattled, he'll talk. So he's kind of like, they're marching him through prison, and the cops all hate him. And then is the best thing that ever happened in life. There's a big Hawaiian guy who's talking to the guard that's leading Black Bolt through. And he says, hey, Rivera, why don't you bring him by my cell for a little playtime? And the guard says, see, you're making friends already. And I'm like, okay, did they do rape room service in prison? Like, talk about amenities. I mean, like, what the fuck? Like, bring him by my cell. I mean, he called dibs. Like, you've got to respect that. But what an insane thing to do. They do a rape delivery service, and they do it. Like, they actually bring him there.
Yeah. The whole prison thing, and we got to talk it through the whole episode, but
yeah,
I thought this was going to be Black Bolt's thing for 6 episodes or something. I thought it was going to be
he's going
him.
To get out again.
Nothing is permanent in the world of the Inhumans. Everything's a minor inconvenience.
Yes.
Like, setup after setup that you're like, I guess this is their thing. By the end of the 4th episode, you will have learned that there is no pattern to what's going on in the writer's room.
No, it's just they're just careening from one thing into another.
Yeah, with the mistaken belief this is cliffhanger exciting instead of absolutely baffling as an audience member.
Yeah.
And they've also introduced Dr. Declan around this point.
Yes, Desmond from Lost.
Yeah,
is Dr. Every time I see him, I'm just like, oh, it's Desmond from Lost. Yes, Dr. Declan. They bring him at the beginning of episode 3. Somebody runs out of the building and hands him a tablet, which has video of Black Bolt destroying the police car from the last episode, using the same camera angles and editing from the last episode. They do not bother to be like, what would this look like if you were just recording this on a phone? Nope. They probably have the music there as well, and then a little ad. So Dr. Declan is very interested in Black Bolt.
I think it's important to point out, when we meet Dr. Declan, we are told these are his headquarters, his expansive headquarters in Santa Barbara, California, which is not cheap real estate.
No. He says he has a makeshift lab. All right, we'll do him. Medusa. Still wandering around in her pigs in space dress. She tries to bully an innocent ATM to get money, which I think is an actually like funny scene. At least, but the joke is like how clueless their characters are.
Which, this was when I kind of like realized like what was kind of driving me crazy about Medusa throughout the last episode. I talked about how like I loved the comic version of Medusa and her kind of being this over the top person. Here she's just played as, I'm generally unpleasant.
Yes.
All the time.
I am bossy. Yeah. And impatient.
She has 2 expressions. She has 2 forms of line delivery. And I don't blame her, because everything she's written is
she doesn't
in a mad panic. We never got a chance to meet the Inhumans, as I complained about last episode, and kind of like, what does the day in the Inhumans' life look like? All we're seeing is the chaotic aftermath of a series of events. Right. So it's not unreasonable as an acting choice to say, well, all this takes place in about 72 hours. Mm-hmm. And of course,
this is it's a bad day for me.
Yeah. You're so fine, but it also means that's all you ever see of the character is her being really wound up, except for her interaction with the ATM, where she thinks she solved something.
Yeah, we see it from the from the ATM's point of view, like through the camera. She's like, I am Medusa, Queen of Inhumans, Queen of Adelan, and I desire money. She doesn't get it. So what she does is she sneaks unconvincingly into a rich person's house. She's like wandering through the Oahu version of Beverly Hills. I don't know what. She's in a very like Tony neighborhood. And a woman has a mansion and like these big gates, and so the big iron gates open, and she just drives out and drives away, and this like clearly insane person in a pigs in space dress is standing there on the street, completely visible, and the one who's driving, the homeowner, has no concerns about just driving away. And so Medusa just like slips in before the gates close.
It's utterly unviable. They could have had her climb over the fence.
Yeah,
no, they could have had her. She's
just standing right there, and she's like, "Oh, I think I will. Why not?" So she comes in, and she just like helps herself. Medusa just helps herself to whatever. Yeah, and the place is amazing. It's got like a nice like gravel garden with a fountain, and then she walks in as this big like open plan living room kitchen. It's by the beach, like. She has an amazing balcony, and so I'm thinking like Medusa has to be thinking, wow, this is way better furnished than my place. Like we've seen her place. Yeah. We've seen Crystal's apartment. Actually, I think we've seen like Black Bolt and Medusa's apartment. There's nothing in it.
No.
So like the Inhumans, they keep saying through the whole thing that they are superior to humans, but they are not specific about their criteria for making that assessment at all. Definitely in terms of like interior design, humans are all over it.
Well, I was reading I finally read the Wikipedia page, and they were talking about the designers for the show, and they said, well, they're architects. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because architects are crazy. Architects don't think at all about how people will actually use a space. They think about how the people should use a space.
Right, and what they look like.
Right. And so if you're designing what the Inhumans a whole world is going to look like, if you're pulling together what the Inhumans world is going to look like, but you're not thinking of like how an interior designer would. You're thinking about what are the structures that are going to be in there. That's how you end up with the Inhumans world. Versus, actually, this is like a house we rented in Hawaii. That's just an Airbnb.
Yeah, and filled it up with like generic Pier 1 imports stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still gorgeous. It's still like way better than hers. And she just helps herself to stuff. She just starts eating things, and she lies down on the bed, and she just like grabs some cool clothes out of the closet.
It was so fortunate that woman was the same size as her.
Yes, absolutely. And that apparently she lives alone, because there could have been somebody there. And then like you think the Medusa's done, and then she just starts going through the pantry for some reason with her stolen purse and just starts taking cans of things. Like, I'm not sure what she thinks she's doing.
Gotta eat. Girls gotta eat.
But she doesn't use those. I don't think she knows what can openers.
Well,
so she's just.
When we get to episode 7, I may disagree with you. But
ooh, okay.
Yeah. But they could have done so many things with this. They could have been like, oh, she's discovered bugles. And like, she decides, oh my God, like I've never had a bugle. This is amazing. Handicap hot fries. I mean, it doesn't matter. They could have done something with her interacting with all of this stuff in a
that would be like a character thing. Yeah.
But there's no character stuff. None.
Nope. She just takes things.
She looks sadly at a picture of another family going, oh, my family's like, we got it. Yeah. We got your beat.
Yeah.
All right.
So she sees a newspaper, which is there, and it's got like a headline about Black Bolt, which is like, clearly this is a newspaper delivered direct from Gilligan's Island. Like, here's exactly the information that you need to know, with a picture of your husband on it. And so then she looks over, and there's a taxi magnet on the fridge, and so now she's going to get a taxi, which is amazing. All right, Maximus. Meanwhile, Maximus. He's talking. So Orin's on Earth, on Oahu. Orin is Maximus's mean lady, who is supposed to kill the Inhumans. She has delivered nothing so far. She had a fist fight with Medusa and got knocked unconscious. Oh no, she got stabbed. I'm sorry, she got stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
And then she heals herself from the knife wound. I get that, like, the healing yourself makes you pretty cool, but she has still not achieved anything. So she's talking to Maximus, and Maximus tells her to go after Gorgon, who, as we discussed last week, there is no strategic importance to Gorgon at all. He just tells her, like, go after Gorgon because he's a bird in the hand. And he says, just take him down and you'll be more prepared for Black Bolt when you find him. And it's like, in what way? How could you be anything at that point but more tired and possibly injured? No, go after the primary objective.
Yeah.
It's just, this is such a great show. And she says, like, Gorgon's, I don't know, Gorgon's going to be tough to take down alone. But, like, in the last episode, she made a really big deal about how, like, she doesn't need anybody. I could do this all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells her, okay, go after one of them.
Yeah.
She already has gone after one of them by herself and lost. Now she's going to go after Gorgon. So this is just what the show is like. Like, every single sentence is stupid for a completely different reason. It's uncanny how they do this.
And this is where I don't know what was like reshoots. Like this is where the show for me starts feeling like that you can start seeing the sweater threads you can pull on of what might have been rewrites of, like, well, we have to do a connecting scene here. It doesn't really matter if it makes sense, but we have to give some motivation for why she's going.
We need her to go after Gorgon, because that's the scene that we have planned.
But there's so little about the show, and you'll hear me complain over the next few episodes about how incoherent it is by the end. And this is kind of where it all starts. Is this kind of little stuff that when you try and add it up as a whole at the end, you're like, I have no idea what I just watched.
It does not make sense.
Nothing about this makes any sense. And it's clearly things that happened in editing where they probably had like all of these different versions of the episodes. They were like trying to cut together into something. But she's going after the old Stompy Boots Gorgon. Lost in the woods. It's funny, somewhere.
Like you're thinking of this as like this is panic. This is us just trying to assemble something. I actually have been watching it just assuming this is their plan, like this is their terrible script. You are probably right, but that wasn't. I wasn't thinking that. That's so funny.
When we get into like episode 6, I'll really get into why.
It'll be really obvious. Yeah, that'll be great. Something to look forward to. So Gorgon with his paramilitary surfer dude friends, they are itching for a fight. Surfer dudes who are just itching to shoot people with their machine guns.
It's crazy. They seem like really dangerous people.
Yeah, incredibly dangerous. And when we meet them, they're just like surfers hanging out. So Gorgon tries to warn them and tell them not to do this several times.
He keeps also talking about how superior he is to these guys.
Yes. Yeah, he says like, oh, these soldiers are coming, and to them you'll be like tiny ants, and they're superior beings like me. And like how he can say that with a straight face, I have no idea. But the Hawaiian says, like, we had a king once, and the mainlanders came and decided we were a state. I'll fight for your king in honor of mine.
Yeah.
Explain that if you possibly can.
I can't. It doesn't make any sense. And I can't.
It is.
The actor must have absolutely been like pounding his head against the pavement.
What am I talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a strong anti-colonial statement in a show that is entirely pro-colonial, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, the whole culture of the Inhumans feels like it's based in like late 19th century aristocracy.
Yes. Yeah.
Like these
just
people,
this assumption that the king, the king deserves to be the king no matter what.
Yeah.
This like
just before all the shit hits the fan and we don't have kings anymore of any that mean anything.
That didn't penetrate for the people who were working on Inhumans. They really thought a king was a great idea, and we gotta support that system.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's offensive in a lot of ways, and I can't believe, honestly, in 2017 that was the pitch they made, that they decided the sympathetic characters, who, again, I was thinking as I was watching the fast forwarded version, I still don't like a single one of these characters.
No,
which is hard to do.
They're terrible.
And it's because they stand around saying, like, well, I'm a superior being. Like, talk about something you would not hear, like, Superman saying, right? I mean, I know these guys aren't that. Yeah. They're not that. Yeah. But they're never giving you a reason to care about what happens to them, because they're assholes.
It's like and he says the quiet part out loud, really. Like, they're, he's just straight up, he literally says, they're superior beings like me. Okay. But people are completely devoted to the Inhumans problem, so they're going to help. And so Oren calls on, like, Maximus sends her some people. So she gets like 4 people who walk through Eltrack the door, and show up. So here's 4 more Inhumans.
Is this where we get
actually 5? I'm sorry, 5.
Or whatever the guy who's clearly the, like, Wildfire knockoff. The guy energy.
The guy who shoots like stuff out of his face.
Yeah.
Or the guy. Oh, you mean the guy with the bike reflectors, Mortis? Are you talking about Mortis?
Mortis. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is when Mortis. So they unchain Mortis, who is an Inhuman,
and in a completely different show.
Death. Yeah. Yeah, they unlock Mortis. It's not clear why they caged him up. I mean, because he's dangerous, I guess, but everyone is dangerous in this stupid show. So Mortis is a guy in a rusty mask with bike reflectors for eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He looks terrible. I mean, like he's supposed to look like terrible, but like this is terrible at looking terrible.
Yeah. It looks like they put a guy in garbage bags and gardening gloves.
Yeah.
And this weird helmet.
And a bike reflector. Yeah. I love his eyes. And his thing is that, like, he can, if he takes off the mask, then it's just constant flame just burns out of him, which is fine. And the other ones, so there's like 4 other people. One of them is called Locus, who does echolocation. Which I don't know about the utility of that on the moon in a tiny little city. How lost do things get?
And be like, "Hey,
yeah,
where are you?"
There's a guy named Pulsus who is actually from the comics. He has electric powers. He does nothing. You don't remember who he is.
I remember. Yeah, no, there were a few warm bodies. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
Someone coming through. Yeah.
There's a guy who's masked until the fight, and we don't see who he is, but when he takes off his face covering later on and like spits, and he's got like all like Star Trek makeup on his face, and he spits like black venom web. I don't know who he is, and he's terrible. And then there is Flora. So they come down to Earth. Now they're on Oahu. Flora has like plant powers. And she comes down, and they're in kind of the jungle. And she says, like, this world is amazing. I've never seen so many plants. Which is true. Like, when we see the city on the moon, there's no plants there.
Yeah.
What powers? How have you been using your powers up until now?
We have to assume she is the person making sure the corn grows or whatever. We got to assume that Inhumans still got to eat. So...
But we don't really see her. I guess we do later, but we don't, like, at least for right now, the way that she uses her powers is to like push trees over, not like make them bloom or anything. But now, so she makes this path through the jungle, and the music, so just, like, the way that she does that is she puts her hands down on the ground, and then the music starts, and like starts out small, and then as she's doing this, like gradually, like the orchestra joins in, and the music is swelling, and then it creates this path. It takes a real long time, like it's not like really she has just made things more convenient for them to walk through. And they do this whole fanfare that's like convenience. Da, 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 da. Now we have a path to walk on.
So she's really exfoliating things more than she's growing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but yeah.
So how are there's, just if you live on the moon, this woman can control plants, but there aren't really a lot of plants. This one can echolocate, but how hidden can something be? Mortis is just a force of pure destruction. How helpful is that? There's a guy who like spits venom out of his mouth, which also can't be like, none of these people have powers that would be helpful at all on the moon.
Right.
Why do you have these powers? We are a society that is clearly on the brink of starvation, and all the mutants can do is like fly around on butterfly wings or be like a force of pure fire destruction. What have they been doing up there on the moon all this time?
It when you put it that way, it makes me think of Alan Moore.
I'm sorry. What you're just saying is like when you think about it for 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, Alan Moore had at some point had said at some point superhero comics became about people having tactical superiority. And that is essentially that's the thinking that went into each one of these characters, is how will they do a cool visual attack that you and I as normal humans could not do. And they didn't think at all about why is this considered to be a bonus thing to have living in a dome on the moon. Like all of these things are way worse than anyway.
Than not having them.
Yeah. I don't
like if you look at Black Bolt and Mortis. Yeah, it's amazing. And that I think really just kind of like puts a period at the end of the sentence as far as the superior beings thing is like, you guys can't even put your own city together. And you have a caste system that makes these people more important than people who don't burn everything they look at. I don't get why the mutants are in charge. It doesn't make any sense. But here they are. They're going through the jungle looking for Gorgon. And the thing that I love about both the Gorgon story and the Karnak story in this is that they act like Oahu is a remote jungle where you can have like superpower machine gun fights without anyone noticing, as opposed to an extremely popular tourist attraction that has more than 200 hotels on it. There's like all these perfect beaches that they land on that nobody knows about. No one is there. No one has set up a hotel next to that. You've been in Hawaii? Like, is that a?
Hawaii. Like, I was only in Maui, and there were definitely places where there. That was like farmland and stuff. Where if you went to the beach, there were people all there. And then we kind of got lost at one point, and we're on roads we should not absolutely have been on. And I would say but that's not where they're at ever. They're constantly like right off a main road at all times. Yeah. Someone is selling T-shirts somewhere nearby. And because they're Hawaii's
like the echolocation power.
They're never there. Yeah. They're never up the mountains. We see them, but
at the mountain, no. Yeah. So Locust with the echolocation, it is real hard to say like how that's going to be helpful for you on the moon, and even like how is that helpful for you as a tactical decision to be making, like while you're out in the jungle looking for somebody. She makes this really loud sound, like, and like obviously people can hear you as you're coming towards them.
Yeah, I mean the army's clearly going to hear whatever I say army. I meant his little surfer buddies. uh, but it's you're also talking about an entire. There's no surprise, right? Because
we know
they're
everybody
from a civilization, right? Of like the size of like a high school, and you're from this size population. There's no way you're not going to know. Even if you don't know that person directly, you know what their deal is because they're
but you
part of the gentry, right?
But you do know what their deal is because and there's like not even that many mutants. You definitely know, like everyone. Like you might not know everybody if you go to like a 1,400 person high school, but that's because there are other people who are outside of the high school that you interact with. This is just if you live in the high school,
right?
Like absolutely, these are the only people that you know, and so like there's so you probably slept with all of them,
right?
Because there just aren't that many options.
Yeah. I mean, it's man. You think about all the like that would be what took down Inhuman civilization. Would be like high school drama.
It's just the inbreeding.
Yeah. Could explain a lot. True.
Like if you steal somebody's boyfriend, like that's serious. We're not going to college and trying again. Like this is it. You have like this number of options, and some of them are hideous and spit out black venom or burn everyone to death with their eyes.
Or have LCD projector eyes that you're like,
or they're a wall.
Can't. Yeah.
Wow, oh my god! And so this makes crystals later stuff. We'll get to that, but just like the idea of just meeting a cute guy that you don't know.
Oh, you don't have three heads. That's hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the hideous monster guys, and then we see like mean security guys, and then the genetic council guys. I mean, I guess no wonder that the people at the top feel super like superior to everybody because it's like we're literally the only hot people on in our entire civilization. That is a factor. That's a very important factor in this show that we had not considered before. Yeah. We are the only hot people that we know.
You're not even Earth 6, but you're in Inhumans 11.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for Adelon purposes, you're a 9.5 guy with huge bug Coke bottle eyes. But we've got these like two beautiful women, and unfortunately what we're doing is sending them down to a super dangerous location to get murdered by machine guns. So Orin's terrible team with useless powers comes, and it's an ambush because Gorgon has like machine gun guys, the surfers, in the trees, and then there's the big action sequence.
Yeah. I actually stopped fast forwarding for the action sequence, and it's a little incomprehensible. The editing on it is just kind of like things are happening, but like good luck understanding, what's happening.
Well, it starts with the burst of machine gun fire. They're just going like pew 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 pew. And all of the mean people, like, they get out of the way, I guess. But there's not a lot of sense. And then they just kind of stop. And after a while, it's just Gorgon and Orin having their usual TV show kickboxing fist fight.
Yeah, there's some wire work we're supposed to appreciate.
Yeah, and like everybody kind of settles down besides that. Right, and so then the guy who you didn't know who he was takes off his hood and like spits black venom up at somebody in a tree, and he falls, but I could not tell why exactly he was falling.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt about the whole sequence. Like people are falling, people are clearly getting hurt or injured or whatever.
Maybe, yeah.
But I don't know how or why.
Flora like puts her hands down on the ground, and like the trees all shake and stuff, but they just like shake a little bit. And then, as far as I can tell, the guys are still up on the trees. It's really hard to tell what's going on. And then Mortis comes out, and he's just like a flamethrower from his face. And so Gorgon goes, and knocks them all down. They all collapse, and then Gorgon and his surfer buddies run away. One of the surfer buddies dies, who we find out in the next episode is named Lucky, which is so it's just like so
I didn't pick up on that.
So obvious and weird and sad of like, oh, Lucky, he's the one. So like, but besides that, I think like, and I think he kills. Who does he kill? Does he kill? Do they kill Flora? Like, does
Flora makes it, Locust makes it, but the two dudes don't make it. But Energy Face.
Oh, Pulsus. Oh yeah, Pulsus might not. Yeah, the guy, the electric guy. Yeah, so he might die, and then they kill Lucky. Poor Lucky.
Well, maybe they do,
and then they all run away
because I'm thinking of like who was in later episodes, but we have to get to the part where they. Anyway, there's another fight.
Yeah, where the other part where they all die. Yeah. All right. So that's Gorgon, amazingly. Karnak. Just got a very good eye roll from Ryan on just from saying the name Karnak. Oh, Karnak, miles from Lost. Now, this is the other Lost guy. And he is actually lost. He is wandering through the jungle. And instead of stumbling upon one of the many hotels on Oahu, he stumbles onto a pot farm, an illegal pot farm, run by a psychopath and his girlfriend and his buddy.
This is one of the things that I believe, not in this episode, maybe not in the subsequent episode, but received rewrites as it went forward. Because it makes
you think this was the rewritten version?
I think this was what we see when he meets them was what was originally written. The way everything spools out as this storyline wraps up is crazy and makes no sense. And I think it was rewritten
because the girl like just stays behind. Yeah. So this is just, it's amazing. They're squatting on public land. They have an acre of marijuana, which at some point we actually see from above, like is extremely visible from above.
Yeah, they're not even planting under trees or anything. It's just out there. It's
just like this big laying out. Yeah, so any helicopter or like anything that goes by is going to see them. But Karnak is supposed to be able to like plan everything and see the flaw in every plan. He does not see the flaw in just stumbling into this pot farm and getting. Is he knocked unconscious? I don't know. He's tied up. They get him and tie him up. And there's a great scene. So this is now it's Reno, who's the psychopath, and Jen, who's the magical pixie dream girl, and then Ted is the disposable friend.
That is a perfect summary. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. This is what I do. And so Karnak, he's tied up against. They're doing something illegal. So Karnak is tied to a post inside their little house. And so he does the thing where he's trying to use his powers. Like he sees these like yellow lines coming out and symbols and things, and he's figuring out the exact weak point where if I do one kick at this random table, it's going to fall over and then the whole place will suddenly be destroyed, which is unlikely. But so he does it. He does the kick and the table just falls over. And the people are like, what are you doing right now? What is happening? So his power is, it's like not, the idea is his power isn't working, but also like, how is that your power? Like, you can't just make things magical.
Well, one of the things
planning,
I'm not sure how much to spoil what's to come on Inhumans, but from what we learn in 2 episodes hence, unless something drastically changes with the leader guy, he would have put a bullet into Karnak immediately. I mean, immediately,
which he deserves.
Oh yeah,
he's as shady as they come. I would have put a bullet into him 10 seconds into meeting him, even if I just meet him on the street.
Jen is played by an actress who was driving me nuts. I knew I had seen her somewhere before.
Yeah.
And it was so I looked her up, and this is where I come clean and admit I sometimes watch myself a Hallmark holiday movie. And she was the star of last year's The Nutcracker Twist, which is not the BDSM thing you would think it sounds like from the title. But
I'm so glad you come with this information.
Drove me insane. The first like 2 episodes she was in, like, why? And I could not.
Oh, it was one of those who is
yeah.
Where have I seen this girl before?
Yeah,
she's a very pretty girl. I have no problem with her.
Oh, she's an absolute knockout, and
yeah,
and I was like, why did they cast this girl in this small role? I guess she's going to be this major role for Karnak.
I mean, she was for a few episodes.
She's really if you talk about like something where it's like, is the female character just there to help the man along with his journey?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
She doesn't
by acting
have
crazy.
She has no other agency other than that, which is, I don't want to get into like some big critique of the show that in that direction, but it is if you're looking for your
I mean, so she is the magical marks. Yeah, she is the magical pixie, because what happens is that like she just takes to Karnak right away. She just thinks he's great. She's going to be friendly, and she's just like this pretty thin girl with like brown hair and like a white kind of tank top, right?
Yeah.
She's like just the perfect girl to be hanging out in the sun in Hawaii. The thing that is crazy is that she kind of takes to Reno. I mean, she kind of takes to Karnak, but like there's Reno the psychopath who has a gun and really wants to kill everyone. Like, she must have a relationship. Like Reno and Ted must both like trade off. So this is the dark thing, is that like obviously if you've got this girl in a place where like she literally cannot call the police because you're doing something illegal. I don't want to say that like that's not what I would do. I'm not saying that this is okay, obviously, but it's just like you come across this situation where she's hiding out with these two healthy young men who like violence. How is she still okay?
I thought she was not Reno, but the Ted, the other guy. I thought she was with him until it was clear she was not. And then I was very confused about what was happening on my television show, as will happen more and more and more throughout. But
very confusing. So we'll get back to that in episode 4, but it is a very, very confusing situation. The way that in episode 3, the way that it ends is that Karnak says like, well, I don't have my powers. And so I can't help my king. So I would like to stay here with you on this pod farm. It's like, what? Could possibly motivate that decision?
Yeah, it's his power has been taken away, but his entire ability to do
think
anything.
And reason.
Yeah. Like,
well, obviously look at this and you desperately want to get away.
Yeah, your king is also clearly not going to come here. Like, that's not going to ever solve your problem. You could ask them for a ride, like say, like, blindfold me and take me out of here. Like there's a million things you could say to like survive that situation.
It's a hard for people who actually like watch this. You'll see like just how difficult this storyline is to even watch. It's challenging. It's very, very challenging.
Yeah, and I can't imagine like I still believe they kind of did the Lost thing of there's this, event, and then we have all these splintered storylines and we're bringing people back together. But what happened in the writers' room that they were like, what could we do with Karnak? I know, pot farm.
Pot farm, yeah.
Like really super sketchy pot farm on top of that.
Yeah. Not very efficient pot farm.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I've read a few things about, some shady stuff pre-legalized pot in Washington State happening and whatnot. And I know
No,
it comes from a place.
I'm not saying that this kind of thing doesn't happen. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it totally does. But why is it in an Inhuman show? Like, why?
Well,
Why is this what they decided to do?
The big question is just what is Jen? What is this young woman doing in the middle of it, where she very clearly should not be? All right, so we're gonna get to that next episode. Black Bolt. Black Bolt in prison with the rape delivery service. He gets delivered to this guy. And the cops are hoping that he will just be raped, but instead this guy, his name turns out to be Sammy. He turns out to be an Inhuman. And he's like, I know what you're going through. Somehow they managed to communicate, and so now, so it's like with every one of these Inhuman like main characters, they go someplace, and wherever it is they end up making friends with whoever it is that they like, either one person or several people. So from Medusa, it's Louise. For Black Bolt, it's Sammy. For Karnak, it's this magical pixie girl. So Sammy's helping him out. The cops are all hoping that they like bring him into like the recess area, and that all the bad dudes will beat Black Bolt up because he injured a cop. And so the inmates, obviously, because this is what happens when you interact with Inhumans, they all decide that he's wonderful, and they start hugging him. Which is amazing. They're like, "Oh, you're great. You're our brother." Don't know what's going on. And then the cops get mad, and so they start trying to like beat people up, and then there's a huge riot. So all of the guards, apparently, in this entire enormous prison, are out in this tiny little recess courtyard, like beating on all of the prisoners and all of the guards together outside right now. And so Black Bolt and Sammy managed to slip away through the door, the unlocked door.
Yeah.
And then they just stroll casually through the entirely empty prison.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those, like, you really have to see it to believe it kind of things of like, I can't believe they did this. They just walk through, and you see like cells and everything, and they're just walking by until they make it to the one like garage door. And then it turns out that Sammy's an Inhuman because he uses his like hands. His hands can melt things. So they use his hands to melt through this garage door, and then they're outside. There are no further guards. There are no further locked doors or any kind of security.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna sigh. This is how this process works: is that I explain the scene and then you sigh.
It was insane when I was watching it. I was like, so they'll have to do some fighting to get out. They'll have to like Black Bolt's gonna have to like burp to make like a door blow open or something. Like something will happen on this action adventure show that will let us see our heroes in action. But no, they just absconded. Like
they just slip away.
The night.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, so they burn their way out, and then here comes Desmond's helicopter, Dr. Declan's helicopter, who comes, and like it was his, so he was arranging with Sammy to like get Black Bolt out, and so he like opens the door of his helicopter, and Black Bolt and Sammy get into the helicopter, and then they fly away.
Yeah, the timing on everything, it wasn't clear if Sammy was supposed to have like, okay, at 8:20, like initiate hugs, or like what, how all of this lined up. Because if a helicopter was flying around a prison,
yeah,
they're going to start shooting at it. And
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
they're hovering. People are going to notice that there's some scientist hovering in a helicopter.
You can hear helicopters like a mile away. Like there's no subtlety with that. Meanwhile,
I did not.
We didn't talk about. I guess by this point we've got a flashback to what's going on with Louise and Medusa.
Yeah. Well, this is where they meet. It's at the end of this episode that they meet. So Louise, who, as we discussed in the previous podcast, is the only likable character, and she is extremely likable, and she does some very cute, likable things in this episode, but that are not important to the plot, and so we haven't talked about it. But Louise has just been waiting outside the prison all day, just sitting in her car, waiting for something to happen because she knows that there's...
Also, by the way, if the prison guards notice a car is idling out front with somebody all day, you're going to get the rap on the glass of can I help you, man?
Not that good. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Nope. She's just sitting there hoping. So, like, she's aware that there are like creatures that came from the moon to the earth, and she's looking for them. She knows that one of them is locked up in this what's beyond minimum security. Like, I don't know, a camp cabin or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's maximum security, there's minimum security, and there's
it's just really a shitty hotel is what they're at.
Right, yeah. A really bad hotel where they don't even try to check you out. So she's like waiting outside this like prison motel, which works. So like Black Bolt and Sammy get into the guy's helicopter and they fly away, and then here's Medusa who saw the taxi. I can't believe I'm explaining this plot. Saw the taxi phone number on the refrigerator in the rich person's house, and so now here she has managed successfully to charter a taxi
with her money she didn't get earlier.
Well, she stole.
Oh, she stole money. She stole money.
She paid. Well, no. I bet she actually, because we don't see the canned food. Like, I bet she pays the guy in cans. She's just like, no, I don't have any money.
Have some peas.
But here I've got some beans. I mean, it's like some I don't know, probably have like vegan soup or whatever, or keto. There's like it's like cans of keto soup. And so, but she magically shows up at the prison at exactly the right time. And Louise is kind of looking at the helicopter, and Medusa meets Louise and pulls a gun on her and says, "We're going to follow that helicopter." And so now they're going to use Louise's car to hilarious effect.
Yeah. I mean, I maybe Oahu's totally different from Maui, but
or the world.
But I was like, what little Medusa has seen of this island would tell her if that helicopter is going that way, the road is not going that way.
Yeah.
And so this whole plan sucks to begin with. Like it's a total non-starter.
And I hate being fair, but to be fair, I forget what I was going to say. Like, she doesn't know anything.
No, she
doesn't know what roads are like.
Yeah, they're kind of dumb babies on Earth, and
the big question is, where did she get the gun? Like, I think she kills a guard somehow and then takes the gun. The gun is very confusing. We'll talk about the gun later.
Yeah, did she get it from like the guy at the security gate?
Possibly. There's one guy on duty that Medusa just like, with no weapons, just knocks out.
Yeah,
and then she takes this gun. Although it's also potentially a ray gun. The gun is very, very confusing. Meanwhile, on the moon, Maximus, we don't even.
Oh, it was Arwen's gun, or Aaron's gun, or whatever the hell her name is.
Oh, did she steal a gun from her?
She must have.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense, but
I remember thinking that the first time I watched it was that.
Yeah. Okay, so she took Aaron's gun. All right. Yeah, because it makes like a pew. It also just looks like a gun. It's like the razor that they used in episode 1, where it's just like, you just got a regular handgun that you're pretending shoots rays out of it, but fine. Up on the moon, the only thing we really need to saw is like Crystal's in her terrible like Pier 1 empty apartment, and Maximus wants her to make a speech to the council and to say that he's the king. And she appears before the council and says, like, Maximus is king of no one. And then she, like, uses her... I now know, we were talking last time about, like, what are Crystal's powers? I now know that her powers are over the elements. This is not explained. But she has cold powers, and so she uses her cold powers to freeze the guns. Nobody else has any powers that's in that room. There's like 15 people in that room. Nobody else apparently has any.
No one can spit poison. No one can.
Yeah. And this is the genetic council too. Like this is the top of the top. We never find out what their special powers
are.
They're
all very normal looking too. Like
not
one of them
just
has
people.
Like even a weird eye.
Yeah, like there are 15 people in this scene, and there's not a single person where I know what their power is.
Yeah, and there's a whole major character whose power we never find out.
Who's that?
The main science council guy.
Oh yeah. No, we know nothing about that dude. So anyway, so Crystal uses her cold power and she kind of runs, and then very similar to the prison break on Earth, like she just runs, and like there's somebody who's in charge of like where Lockjaw is, and so she just kind of like disables that person, and then she runs in, she finds Lockjaw, the stupid dog, and then Lockjaw, and she says to the stupid dog, "Take me to where you took the others." And of course, Lockjaw just brings her to another random point in Oahu.
Yeah.
And then lies down in the ground and then gets run over by a car. And that, my friends, my listening friends, that is how you lose 500,000 viewers before the next episode.
I don't think we're doing this is because episode 3 is when I started realizing how much screen time they were going to give Maximus to keep repeating.
A lot.
Yeah. And where he's just going to keep repeating the same PowerPoint of why he should be king and what's the matter with everybody else.
Yeah. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And he's not wrong on a single count.
No, but it's going to, and the frustration of no one wanting to hear him will drive him insane over time.
Yes,
he never sleeps. He never eats.
he just walks around the parking garage.
Yeah, just like ranting on the same bullet points over and over and over.
Yeah,
and I suspect he's also wearing a little wig. I don't think. I mean, there's no way that's his real hair. That was my determination after watching this whole thing.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, he's in this episode. Like we talked about what everybody else is doing. We don't talk about
because those are all storylines. Because he's just going and talking to like important people around the city
and threatening people. 2 seconds after he's gotten the throne, which in a coup situation is the most surefire way for somebody else to go. Thanks, dude. Bang. You have no powers.
Bang. Right. Yeah. You should not be. Yeah. He kills the entire genetic council in the next episode. He kills them all. Or maybe episode 5, he kills them all. But it's to no effect. It doesn't matter. These are just people in tunics.
Again, it would be like if 15 people at your high school got killed, you'd probably notice. It would probably be a big story of like, this guy might not be who we want in charge.
Council. Right, the genetic council is like literally those are the supreme judges of life and death. It's like the Supreme Court. I guess that's what it is. Like the Supreme Court and Congress basically is the genetic council.
Yeah,
and he just merged them.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the end of episode 3, and we will see you 500,000 viewers later, where things get even worse.
Inside myself and see my heart is black. No colors anymore. I want them to turn black. I want to see it painted black.
So we're back for episode 4. We're talking about the music that they used a bit in the Inhumans television program. And to me,
tell me all about it.
Like, there was this thing that happened, and I first became aware of all this about 10 years ago. About in Supergirl was the show I watched, which you want to hear some sighing going on.
A pretty good show, I would say.
Every episode of that show, so I can't have disliked it too much.
Yeah,
but it's this thing that started happening where they would take a familiar song, have somebody cover it, and slow it down to about half pace. And this show, that's how you can tell, like, Guardians of the Galaxy is out there with this amazingly well curated soundtrack of popular tunes. This
by
show,
the original artist.
By the original artist. It's got David Bowie on
Yeah.
it. It's the bee's knees. This pops up and immediately dives into, and they only can afford it for like some key scenes in the pilot, and then they do it again, I believe, in the finale. And
the karaoke version of Painted Black.
Yeah. And you'll have just heard it. I just promised Danny I was going to play it between episodes. And it's this kind of, like, I'm not sure who are fans of that kind of music. I'm not that guy. And I always feel like
karaoke versions.
Yeah, like I don't know who. Like, it always feels to me like people who are trying too hard wearing like black leather pants. Who are like, yeah, I'm gonna do it my way, and it's like, no one asked for that. But that's my personal musical taste. I grew up on the Stones and also the Jane's Addiction version of like Sympathy for the Devil, so I think I can believe in some covers of Stones stuff. I've learned to just kind of tune it out and not like get mad about it. But I find it a fascinating thing that network shows from a very specific era seem to really think was a great idea. And I think it was popping up on stuff like The Blacklist and other things like that as well. But I don't want to rain on anyone's parade and their particular musical taste. Not necessarily my bag.
But it is funny when it shows up here. Episode 4.
Yeah, I don't remember at all how it starts.
Episode 4 starts with the helicopter. So we've now taken the Desmond from Lost is in the helicopter and talking to Black Bolt and Sammy, and he is basically telling them, I'm going to take you to my laboratory and experiment on you, but it's not going to be bad. It's going to be totally fine. Like, and like Black Bolt is like kind of shaking his head and stuff, and Sammy's like, wait, what are you gonna do to us? And Desmond's like, if I could just get a DNA sample from you right now, like, I'm just gonna take some of your blood. It just couldn't be like any more sketchy.
Well, then they get to the lab, which is a pristine medical environment.
Well, he says like, I'm gonna take you to a makeshift lab that's on Oahu, because I think he's supposed to have been in California. I'm going to take you, he says, to a makeshift lab where I'm going to run experiments on you, but you're totally going to be in charge of this. And they're like, okay. So they're in a helicopter.
Never go to a second location with someone who says they want.
Exactly. It's the second location. Yeah. I'm just going to laugh and laugh. All right. But thankfully, they are not alone, because down on ground level are Medusa and Louise. Louise is driving her car from the prison, and Medusa is holding her ray gun, which looks totally like a regular gun, like just holding a ray gun on her unblinkingly. And Louise is like, okay. And so she's trying to follow the helicopter. She's actually interested in this. And so she's trying to like ask questions, which Medusa is ignoring. And finally, Medusa gets impatient and says like, faster, and like puts her foot down onto the gas pedal, like onto Louise's foot and the gas pedal. Somehow she's figured out cars. Yeah. And so Louise, who's very funny, is just like, wait, hold on, we're running a red light. Okay, that's bad. And so they run a red light, and a police car starts chasing them with its lights on. And Louise is being a person and is saying, like, we have to pull over. And Medusa's like, no, don't pull over. She's like, we can't just keep driving. And Medusa's like, apparently we can. It's just one terrible decision after another. There's no reason why they need to be wanted by the police.
Well,
but
right.
Then...
but my question is then, are they? Because it never actually is a thing.
It doesn't come... No, it doesn't. They come after her. So the great thing is that Medusa's like, okay, the noise behind me, the police car, this noise is bothering me. I don't want any more of this noise. So she opens the window and takes her little ray gun and shoots at the police car. And the police car drives off the road.
Yeah, she stone cold kills a couple of cops.
She like as soon as these people show up anywhere, chaos and destruction, especially police cars. And then they still lose the helicopter.
Which they were always going to do.
Which
Louise should have been explaining first and foremost. It is a helicopter. It does not have to stick to the roadways. That's the whole point.
This is a place. Yeah, this is a place with a lot of mountains and turny.
Yeah,
roads.
they're going to go at a very high velocity, and they're going to just keep going in a straight line when we cannot. And at that
the point of a helicopter is to not have to deal with the bullshit that we are dealing with right now.
Right. It was a deeply dissatisfying series of events that happened at the beginning of this episode. And I do remember Black Bolt sitting there with his headphones on and me going, what a nightmare for everyone involved with this scene. Like the guy who doesn't know what's going on in the scientist, the guy who doesn't know what's going on in the prisoner, and the guy who can't talk, and they're all like two of the three of them are yelling over the helicopter sound.
And then down below, so like the thing that saves it is just that Louise actually she's so funny and she's so much fun to watch. So they get to I don't know where they're like it's the place where they have to stop because there's water in front of them and they can't a bay or something. They get to like the edge of a bay and the helicopter goes across the bay. And so Medusa and Louise are like out of the car watching the helicopter fly away. And Louise, like, then they have actually a nice scene where Louise says, like, you don't live here, do you? And then kind of like points at the full moon and says, do you live up there? And Medusa says yes. And Louise just has this, like, it's actually a really good reaction. It's kind of like the best thing that happens. Is that she actually is given kind of like a funny reaction of like, oh my God, this is actually the most, like, this woman is terrible and she's holding a ray gun on me, but this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah. The actor who played Louise knew what to do in a way I think a lot of the other actors did not.
They didn't have a clue. Yeah. Louise is killing it. But now she's going to put her safety at risk. Now she's wanted by the police. She's like, we have to dump this car. So she is aware. And so then they go to a hotel room, which is another cute scene where like Medusa, Louise is trying to like use, I don't know what, satellite something. I don't know. She's tapping on a computer. It's like any hacker movie or TV show where she like taps on the computer for a while and squints at the screen and then is like, we're in. I got the information. But Medusa is like pacing and being obnoxious. And the really good line that Louise has is, I'm sorry, am I annoying you by helping you? Which is good. Like, it's
I guarantee you was not in the script. There's no way the script was that smart.
I don't know. It's so weird. If you just had the Louise scenes and just strung those together, it would be actually a really good show.
Well, in that kind of...
I mean, that's cutting 85% out of the show.
But I was thinking about this, like Eternals didn't really work. This didn't really work. Both of them on paper should have worked. And I think this really... to that point, like the only storyline it feels like the writer's room was invested in was Medusa's. Like Black Bolt can't talk, so they can't really have him go on any kind of journey, which they try to do.
Right, like an emotional journey or whatever, where it's like, oh, he's going to make a slightly different facial expression.
Right. I mean, better writing and a better director absolutely would have done that, but it needs to be the whole movie then at that point, right?
Yeah.
And there's no one thought in terms of like, what is this person's movie that's going to occur? They thought of it entirely in like side quests that were moot until they all get back together, and then they'll move forward together. And I think that the only one they really kind of tried with, because it was the major through line that was going to kind of pull all those things along, was this Medusa and Louise thing.
Yeah.
Because the other ones are all nonsense.
Which is,
I couldn't tell you what happens with Gorgon in this episode if you gave me $100. I have not a clue.
I will tell you all about it. It's basically the same as the last episode. Yeah, but they have, and so this is actually like, I did not like Eternals at all, and this is probably one of the reasons why, is that like they don't actually have a character like Louise who's like a human who actually cares.
Yeah.
They do have the one guy who's, what's his name, little friend.
Oh yeah,
the movie star guy who like, and then he has his friend that tags along.
Yeah,
who is like the best part of that movie as well, because he has like really funny lines and funny reactions to things, but he's not driving, like literally driving the way that Louise is in this episode, where like what Louise does and her decisions actually matter to the plot, and she's funny and she's cool, and I like her a lot. Anyway, she has a little rocket. I just want to mention this because it's my weird thing that like my husband knows very well, which is I hate it when people leave their stuff behind in movies and TV shows. I get very stressed out. So Louise, like Medusa, starts playing with this tiny little like toy rocket that's like on a chain that I guess she keeps around her neck, but doesn't, because it's sitting there for Medusa to fuck with. And it's a little rocket because her dad was a scientist at NASA. And there's again a nice Louise line where she's like, he worked at NASA and they were trying to decide whether to send scientists or send pilots to the moon, and they chose pilots. And so my dad never got to go. Again, a nice little moment. But then she says that his ashes are inside of it. It's tiny. It's like the ashes of his index finger are inside that. Like there's not a lot of space.
Her dad was a Smurf, and
this tiny little kind of charm bracelet necklace. Not a lot of space in there, but her father's ashes. He was a very small man.
Yeah, and I don't want to like totally nitpick, but that would mean Louise. What are we here for? Louise would have to be. This is 2017.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, she'd have to be like 60 years old at this point. Like
you're right. Her dad was at like Apollo 12.
Yeah, it's like they'd already made those decisions like in like before NASA was called NASA.
In the 60s.
Like in the 50s and 60s, yeah. And I was just kind of like, oh, someone got sloppy with like not Googling like the history of NASA.
History of NASA.
By the time
we're writing about NASA.
Right. And it
could have been grandfather. It easily could have been grandfather.
It should have been grandfather. And the real
that
kicker,
did not even occur to me.
Yeah, and she they did put scientists up then in the age range that it would have been. They quit using pilots years ago. I mean, they are still usually a pilot on like the space shuttle or whatever. But since Skylab,
no, she was talking about
those are all scientists and doctors.
No, she was talking about the moon landing. Like that was clearly like what she was referring to.
So you're talking the Apollo mission. So you're talking 69, which this is
Apollo 11.
Yeah. She's. I mean,
she's a million years old. I can't believe I didn't notice that. That's hilarious. And then the cops show up to their hotel room because Louise still used the same credit card. These people are terrible at what they do. So like she ditches the car, but then actually still keeps paying with her credit card. So the cops show up and Louise and Medusa have to run, but she leaves the rocket behind. And so this is the thing that drives me nuts. Like every time I am so alive to the idea of like losing my bag, that like whenever I see somebody and they've got like something important in a backpack or in a purse or something, I'm always watching that thing like a hawk. And if they have to run out of the room, I'm like, take your bag. Oh my God. Why didn't you? I get really, really upset. And sometimes like that's the plot is that they've like left this important thing behind, but I'm like, oh my God. Like, and so I'm so stressed out about it until they get back. And so that absolutely kicked in this. She's like, oh my God, my rocket, I left it behind, and Medusa has to go and get it. And I'm like, it's the one thing in this entire show where I actually feel invested in what's happening right now. I'm like, oh my God, Medusa has to get that rocket toy. This is the way personally that you can get me involved in
but it also
any
was
kind of drama.
one of the few times that something worked like a movie. Like,
yeah.
They put some stakes into it.
Yeah.
And put some emotion behind it, and then there was the chance of losing it, so you get reinvested in it, and it creates a character bond between the two that Medusa rightfully. I was initially like, well, why doesn't she go back for him? Like, well, because the cops would have her driver's license picture. She can't.
Well,
they never say any of it.
Medusa says, I'm faster. You go run out, and I'm faster. I can go back, which, and it turns out she's correct. Like, she has to, she just has to go in, and then she actually like climbs out the back, like out the balcony or something. It's a good Medusa moment, and it's a good like character moment for both of them. This is the one thing, but amazingly, then the next time we see them after they evade the police, they're just walking down the street and they have hats. Louise has bought them both hats, and that is going to be their disguise. So they wear sunglasses and hats, and they go somewhere and they get lunch.
In some ways, I was like, this was one of the things that was from the initial draft. This is what they were going to have, these like both exciting but also daffy adventures with Louise and Medusa.
Yeah. And
at some point, Louise was kept in the show, and she has some really good moments going forward. But she's kind of flying solo on those. Like, I feel like at a certain point, like she and Medusa, it's actually cute to watch them together. So that's what someone realized is we have these two diametrically opposed personalities. Peanut butter and jelly. Let's do it.
Yeah. And so they have a nice scene, like kind of, they basically like they go out for lunch, and then Louise leaves her laptop on the table and goes and does something, and Medusa just like takes the laptop and wanders off. And that was another like triggering moment for me. I'm like, oh my God, why'd you leave your laptop there? It always stresses me out so much. I never lose things. And so they finally have a conversation where Louise is like, you dummy, hang with me. I work for a space program. I can actually get you home. Maybe humans aren't useless. I've broken more. So this is a nice line. I've broken more laws today than I ever have in my entire life, and all of it has been for you. And Medusa says, I like you, Louise. And Louise is like, geez, took you long enough. It's really cute. Every scene with Louise is worthwhile. I would like to see the fan cut where those are literally the only scenes. It would be like the 22-minute series. That would have been great the whole time. So that's my Louise thing. I'm sorry, I had to. No,
I agree. I thought this, when I was going through and not just fast forwarding through scenes the first time, I thought that, okay, well, this is the level this thing will remain at now. And then you get just into the next scenes and it all fizzles out again.
It all falls down. Yeah. So Black Bolt at the makeshift lab with Sammy, where Dr. Declan, I don't understand this at all.
I just want to go back to, the guy has an enormous facility in Santa Barbara, California, where that alone had to have been a $20-30 million facility just from the size of it and the location. And he keeps going, oh, I'm being funded by this other guy. And for some reason, I'm using like this janky, leaky hangar. And it doesn't make any
sense. Which is the thing, right? Which is the thing that they can afford. Yeah, you're right. Like at the beginning of episode 3, there's actually a scene where he is like leaving the building of like the important, big, expensive building that he's in.
Yeah.
But they could only film in that spot for like half an hour outside. That was what they could afford.
It's a rent an office space somewhere, for the love of God. That doesn't make any sense that this all takes place here. But anyway, go on.
So Declan says, he talks about like in the DNA, like if there's a mutation or something, that there's like a circle in your DNA. And then he looks at Black Bolt's DNA and he says, row after row of circles, more perfect than anything else I've ever seen. Which doesn't make any sense. So he's crazy. He walks outside. Desmond walks outside and he uses his comm link to call Maximus on the moon, who is funding this. Which doesn't make sense. They've never seen each other. They mentioned that.
Yeah.
But Maximus somehow has decided it makes sense like at the big plot level, but it doesn't make sense when you get down to the ground. The idea is like Maximus's whole deal is that he wants to be Inhuman again. He was turned human by the Terrigenesis, and now he wants a geneticist to be able to like take DNA from Inhumans and figure out how to put that into humans so that Maximus can become Inhuman and special again. That makes sense.
Totally.
The logistics of I am funding you, I'm giving you millions of dollars. Like, what would you need to give somebody to do all this? Where does Maximus get Earth money from?
How did he get in touch with him? Where
right in the first
email?
Place, yeah.
Like none of it. He has the little communicator. Well, how did the communicator get there?
How did he get it? Yeah,
like surely whatever his name, Eric the Head or whatever would
Eldrak.
have told.
Eldrak the door.
Would have.
I just thought of that. Like Eldrak the door. He probably knows everything that's going on, right? Because he watches them bring conflict.
He would absolutely have to know what was going on because that is their only way back and forth.
No one ever tells the door.
Yeah, and it's like, so we're to believe that a guy who's totally human, who's trapped within humans, who shows up on Earth and is like, oh my God, there's food and there's like fresh air and I could be in Hawaii. Like, I'm going to go back up there with these people who I feel like treat me like dirt. It's like the first thing people do is to get away from their families. You know, it'd be the kid leaving small town America and going to have his adventure. That's the movie I want to see.
Yeah, you're leaving high school. You're leaving Bitter Lake, Iowa,
right.
And you're ending up someplace else. Logistically, it does not make sense. But Maximus tells him, this is the really hard moment. Maximus tells him, you need to put down Black Bolt because Maximus wants Black Bolt dead because then like he can't come back and be king. And Declan says, like, I can't because I'm doing this work. And Maximus says, well, you can get his DNA after he's killed. You don't need him alive. I wrote this down. Declan says, actually, I do. Cell construction changes immediately upon death, chiefly the nucleus. This is not the case. It turns out that like
no,
the idea that he's positing is that if you take blood from somebody and you have it now in a blood bag and you're testing the blood, that blood somehow knows whether the person is alive or dead. Even if you wanted to say, I can't take the blood of a dead person and get the DNA information, which you absolutely can.
Mm-hmm.
But even like if you take blood samples right now and then kill the dude, the blood doesn't change. No. The blood doesn't change.
I mean, it wouldn't be so offensive if like half of the shows on network TV weren't about people looking at DNA and explaining
DNA, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, DNA is like this totally unknown concept on television.
Yeah, it's like, how many seasons of Bones did we have that you think you can get away with this in Humans?
Clearly and also like chiefly the nucleus. Cell construction changes immediately upon death, chiefly the nucleus, which is even worse.
Oh man.
It's even, oh my God, if it changes the nucleus.
Don't touch the nucleus, yeah.
So you can't fuck with the nucleus.
And the nucleus is part of a cell and not the DNA at that. Mm-hmm. So that's fun. But
he does, cell construction changes.
Right.
All right, so that's DNA. And so Declan goes back and he like is talking to Black Bolt about Inhumans, and he gives him this tablet that Blackpool can swipe on that shows like one after another, like pictures in a hospital setting of different people with makeup who are clearly Inhumans. I don't know why I'm making a big deal about this, but Blackpool immediately knows how to swipe on a tablet.
Oh, that's true.
And that made me happy as well. Crystal.
Oh man.
Crystal has in a panic once again teleported with Lockjaw down to Earth. Lockjaw is a big hippopotamus size or bigger, possibly rhinoceros size, I might say. Has taken her to Earth, to another absolutely random location in Oahu, where the dog is immediately run over by a blonde surfer dude who is driving at night in an ATV down a little path with no lights on it. This guy's not super bright. And he runs into Lockjaw and injures Lockjaw somehow. And then he flies out of the ATV, but he is fine. Dave. Dave is gorgeous. Dave is
that is Dave's job.
To be gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank God somebody has that goddamn job. Someone on the show needs
3 episodes in and we're like, we don't have.
There's not a single hot guy in the show. What the hell? Yeah. So he's finally Dave, the magical Dave. And he's talking to Crystal, and Dave is the pure fantasy, the fantasy figure where you come to Earth you leave your high school for the very first time. You come to Earth. There are 0 options for you on the moon. And the first thing that happens is you meet a gorgeous, blonde, tall guy who is sweet and non-threatening and doesn't mind anything you say to him and cares about your dog and really sincerely listens to you when you're whining about all your problems. He's totally comfortable with women having power. Perfect man. She meets the perfect man.
Dave is really underwritten. I guess Dave. I kept waiting for something to happen with Dave, like him to show a personality that wasn't just. They had this horrible. There's the hang loose scene in a few episodes.
Oh my god, the hang loose! I know,
and I just. You can't even like. Well, if I was a younger person, I probably would have been mad at Dave. And now I just look at Dave and I'm like, he's just a sweet, simple man.
Gorgeous man who does not realize his own gorgeousness.
And he's a perfect match for Crystal, who is similarly written as being completely empty-headed.
Just a girl. Beautiful. Just a girl. Yeah, absolutely. Girl. Exactly. Yeah.
And they're
he absolutely is the perfect man for her.
Yeah. They just kind of take
now the big thing
on screen.
Yeah, but they're pretty.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole thing where like they have to take Lockjaw. So Lockjaw's injured and they have to take him to Dave's farm. Dave has a farm where he grows. Oh, I forget. Ryan, what does he grow?
I was looking at my phone
nothing.
Or something when they said it.
Right. No, the answer is nothing. He grows nothing. He has a barn. He's a man who owns a barn and a farm, which has literally nothing on it. And he has nothing to do today except like talk to Crystal. I mean, that actually is realistic. Like if Crystal showed up, pretty girl from the moon who knows nothing, showed up in your life all of a sudden with a big injured dog, like, yeah, what am I doing today? I'm going to focus on this girl, obviously. That's actually not a mystery at all, but I don't know what he does every day otherwise. But he has this barn with no animals in it. And then he has his ex-girlfriend who's a vet that he can call at any time.
There's some deeply complicated writing around the vet in this. Like I
like the vet. I actually think that she's the other okay character on the show.
I felt so sorry for her at every turn.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just like her ex-boyfriend calls her and then he's like, this is my new lady friend with her dog,
new girlfriend,
you have to fix,
who I just met.
Yeah.
But I think she plays that. But that's the thing, is like that the actress I think is actually decent there as well, because she's playing that in the scene of like, fuck you and fuck your girlfriend, and fuck your girlfriend's dog. But I'm a vet and it's enormous and I might as well try. Yeah, and then Dave and Crystal just kind of like flirt with each other, and he gives her a high five at one point, and she says, "No human has ever touched me before." It's like, okay, that's not gonna be the last. Karnak, and the pot farm, and Jen, the pretty girl, who teaches him how to grow pot, and is super flirty with him. She is all up on him.
Yeah, it's baffling. I cannot. This is one of those places where I'm like, were there rewrites? Like, what happened here that they decided a bloody dude wanders out of the woods, seems confused, keeps talking about his king, and she's like,
his king.
I need him.
I
carnally need this guy.
I am gonna get with that dude, despite the fact that you are clearly being passed around between the psychopath Reno and the other guy on this pot farm.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna decide that I'm totally into you.
Yeah.
Now, Karnak, the thing that needs to be said, Karnak is not an attractive man. I'm just going to put that right out on Front Street. He is not an attractive man. I don't, like you said, with the hair, like, and the bald head, like, we don't like to criticize people, but Karnak is not an attractive. We just have to accept that that's the truth. There are two questions.
He's in Adelan 7.
Maybe even a 6. Even for Adelan, he might be a 6.
No one ever mentions his big face tattoos either, which is amazing.
No, they do. No, they have he and Jen have a conversation about his tats, and his answer is, yeah, that was a dumb thing that I did when I was a kid, and I thought it was a great idea, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean that was the like I was expecting an explanation of something.
Oh no, but it's not like it's not like related to his powers or culture or anything. He just has these ugly tats. He's not an attractive man. He has these ugly tats, completely bald head, sweaty and gross all of the time. There are
constantly just looks
constantly sweaty and awful. The two questions that are the only questions to ask about superhero media is how much money did it make and how hot are the people?
Mm-hmm.
I am extremely judgmental about the hotness of people who appear in superhero media, as I should be.
Yes.
You are not a surgeon. You are not a poet. You are an actor in a shitty comic book show, and you need to be more attractive than you are. Is my feeling about Karnak.
Well, and
not my fault. I do not take any responsibility for being super judgmental about that.
No, and to make matters worse, Jen is an absolute smoke
super hot
show. Yeah, like they had the scene where like they're heading down to the beach in this episode, and I was like, are they going there with these? Like, no, with these two. Nobody, like this isn't.
I have the dialogue. I wrote down the dialogue for the let's go to the beach scene because it's unreal. They're walking down. So like we've left the pot farmers behind, the psychopath pot farmers, and Reno. Yeah. And Jen has taken Karnak on a little walk. And so they're walking through the impenetrable jungle. And she asks him, like, which way do you want to go? And Karnak, so here's the thing I wrote down. Karnak says, it depends where we're going. What's the purpose of our journey? What's the destination? And he says, and she says, who says we have to have one? And he says, a purpose or a destination? And she says, you know what I think? I think you spend way too much time stuck inside your own head. And then they walk forward 3 steps, and there's the beach. It's right in front. The way that they do the shot, it's right in front of them.
Yeah.
The ocean.
You would have heard the pounding surf already.
Yes. You are looking at it. You're specifically looking at it. Obviously, there is a purpose and a destination. When she asked you, where do you want to go? I'm going to go to that gorgeous beach and the ocean right in front of me.
Mm. Yeah.
You are not hot enough to get away with this. Dave is hot enough for me. Dave is hot enough to get away with being as dumb as Dave is. Karnak is not hot enough for me. It is not the purpose. It is not the destination for Karnak. But then she's like, hey, I'm a free spirit. I'm going to take off my clothes.
I do want to
run
say,
into the surf.
editorially, this is where Jamie was watching the episode with me and was like, I'm out.
It's not good for women.
The show had officially hit a point of being so dumb through that sequence of events that she was just done. Yeah.
Like, I'm done. But for me and you, we don't have moments like that. We just keep on rolling.
Yeah.
So then it's a whole thing. It's a whole like rom-com thing about like, come on, get your legs wet. And like, they're going to get into the water together and she's going to be all up on him. She forces herself on him. She initiates that first kiss.
Mm-hmm.
He is confused. He needs a Me Too moment because she rapes him. She assaults him. And then after that, and the psychopath then is watching them, and they head straight back to her tent to have sex.
Yeah.
And there's Reno, the psychopath, looking at them really, really angry for obvious reasons. Angry about this sweaty, gross little guy who just walked into our tent and took Jen away. How is she not thinking about this? She totally acts like this is my hotel room. Let's go back and have sex. No consequence to this. Have you met the guy with the gun who's right outside the tent?
And it's not like the tent is away from things. The tent is in the
middle of camp.
They have like a building and tents. That's it. And they're all like 20 feet apart.
Yeah. Reno is looking right at them.
Yeah.
Playing with his little gun.
Yeah. He's hearing every sound that's coming out of the tent.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's an awkward one. And it's bright daylight. Like they just walk, they go in, they're not sleeping. They're going in and they bone for the first time.
It's whatever horrible experience you had with the roommate in college bringing someone back. This is
your girlfriend. But this is your girlfriend. Clearly,
and it's your girlfriend. Like,
yeah. Reno feels ownership over Jen. Which, however you want to feel about that gender politics wise, like obviously that is the dynamic that's happening. So he kills Ted while Jen and Karnak are boning.
As long as I'm murdering people.
He kills Ted and he digs one of those graves that you can dig personally with a shovel in a TV show.
Yeah.
When you want to dig a grave and it's like perfectly rectangular and you've just done it yourself with a shovel.
Yeah, I've made exactly a golden rectangle of a grave.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 feet below. And then here's where I'm going to bury Ted. And so he buries Ted. There you go. That's the Karnak story.
I can't tell you how many times when I see a grave like that on TV that I wonder what poor PA had to do that. Or if they got a shovel out there, like a steam shovel to do it. But someone was like, "Oh, there's a grave in this scene." It's like, well, get the interns, give them shovels. Better look good, team.
So that's the. No, they get it. Okay, so that's where Karnak is the whole episode. He's just in this little fantasy rape space where he gets taught what love is like. So good for him.
I do want to talk a little bit about, because this whole thing is supposed to be about him. He is boned into trusting something other than, and I never could quite figure out what his character arc is. If Jen serves to like help him along his journey.
Yeah.
They kind of like, they never quite say like, follow your heart instead of your head. They never quite say like, it's more of, oh, well, there's more possibilities. It was like, but his power was to whittle down the possibilities. He understood what they were. We saw him going, no, not that, this, not that, right. This. He's already knows that. He just was really good at it. And so it's like, if anything else from this experience, you should learn, if you can't anticipate things, a psychopath will come murdering you.
kill you.
Like that is actually the
it's like,
lesson of the sequence of events.
it's like his power is that he can see like how things could possibly go badly, and he does everything that he's doing. And it's like, dude, I don't need superpowers to tell me how many mistakes you're making right now. You're just clearly making terrible decisions, and this is not going to go well for you. So that's the all right. That's the cliffhanger where we leave terrible Karnak, terrible Gordon.
Is he even in this episode? I don't remember him doing a single thing.
He is. Well, he's walking around with the surfers,
Mhm.
and I wrote some more things down. So Gorgon says, he tells the surfers, he's trying to tell them, like, I don't want to risk your lives anymore. You've already done that. Here's Lucky, poor little Lucky, who they have to bury. The surfers still insist on helping him. And Gorgon says, back home, I could barely go anywhere without creating some sort of damage. I'd knock over things. I'd stomp on things. And it occurred to me, like, is it possible they just told him that he was the head of the Royal Guard? And in fact, he was not at all.
Yes, we've created a Royal Guard, Gorgon.
Yeah, and you're in charge of it, for sure. The guy who knocks something over every time he walks into a room. So yeah, so there's that. That's amazing. And then he tells them, I would have never thought I would have cared about a human dying before. And then that just sits there. And he says, like, these people they're going to come back. This isn't going to be a fair fight. And the absolutely devoted Hawaiian surfer man says, well, that doesn't mean we can't win. Y'all. So, and then Gorgon says, Oren will find me. I can't lose you guys too. You feel like family, and I must protect my family. This is like summer. This is the summer camp family of like, there's no one else around, so you bond with like the people who are in your line of sight, and you're like, you're my family now. And then he runs away on his little hoof, and there goes Gorgon.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, kind of at the top of this episode, it's like you kind of think, oh, they're going to do these storylines over like 4 to 5 episodes before we get to the finale. Mm-hmm. And instead, it's these like little blips of like kind of, we're never going to actually tell you enough to get you invested. You're just going to bear witness to shit happening. Except for the Louise stuff, I think does a little better. Yeah. But literally everybody else, you're just like constantly saying, what just happened? Why? Who are these people? Did any of them have names? I don't know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the moon, Maximus, again, like it's very similar to what we were saying for the last episode. It's like he talks a lot. He's in the show a lot. We see him, like, it's kind of like you'll go and see Gorgon and then you come back to Maximus. Then you see Karnak and then you come back to Maximus. Like Maximus is kind of like his through line is the thing that they use like to structure everything else. But he doesn't really do anything. So like he just kind of tells people what he wants. So he talks to the Genetic Council, which are like 6 people who probably are super mutants, but we don't know how or why. And so he explains all the stuff about like, so this is where he says like, my goal is to unlock the genetic structure so that I can put it into myself. I can go through Terrigenesis again and become Inhuman again, which is actually a good plan. Like I totally understand why he feels that way and why he wants to do that. And the Genetic Council stands there and says to this lunatic, like, no, we can't allow it. Why? Like, it's so obvious that this guy wants to kill you. He is going to kill you in pretty much the next episode. Every Inhuman is an idiot.
And anyone who's worked in government would know, you would just say, let's figure out what the challenges are. And then we'll figure out how to cross those deltas. Mm-hmm. You would say something incredibly politic.
You say yes. Right. You say yes, and you wait for him to fail on his own.
Yes.
without you, so that he doesn't kill you.
Right.
All right. But they say no. So he actually, I actually believe this is where I wrote this down, that he actually kills them. He kills everybody. He kills the whole genetic council in this episode. And they do not have the power to like not get murdered
by a human with no powers.
By a human with no powers, like, because I'm on the genetic council, I have a super strong carapace protecting me, or I have the ability to fling people away from me, or I can get injured like Orin. Orin has like super magic powers. She should be on the genetic council. No, they have nothing. They have nothing helpful at all. Probably one of them echolocates, and one of them has butterfly wings, and they just all get murdered. So, but on the Earth, Orin with her terrible people are still running around, and they actually, I don't know how they do this. They get to where Declan is
because Locust can echolocate where anybody is.
Oh, right, yeah. People, so Locust finds them. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So they find him, and so Black Bolt and Sammy, like, again, sort of stroll out of yet another high security building. They get outside to the parking lot, and then Orin is there and brings her terrible people out, including Mortis, who's gonna like shoot them with fire. Black Bolt runs over to a gas pipe. So there's like a big gas thing. Explain this to me if you can. There's like a big thing that says gas on it. A big like cylinder gas container. He just like Black Bolt walks over to and like pulls on one of the pipes and breaks it. And so now there's all this like steam, all this gas coming out. And they just look at him and let him do that. And they stand there and watch. And, and so now like the reason why he did that is like if Mortis takes off his mask and he's full of fire, then that will blow up everything. And Arn's like, cool, okay, if that's how you want your kingdom to go down, then that's totally fine with her. And then coming around the corner, Louise and Medusa taking the turn. Top speed.
Thelma and Louise in their convertible.
Medusa opens the door and cold cocks Mortis, she had no idea was here or was important. She has just turned the corner and decides, I'm going to open the door at just the right time to screw this guy. And so Mortis, I don't know, something like he gets hit, and then there's this enormous gas explosion. Because his mask kind of falls off and then like everything explodes, which is just like one more example. By the way, like the people who were in like the Declan people, they don't come out at that point and say, why are you blowing things up in our parking lot? Huge gas explosion. Black Bolt's okay. Medusa's okay. Louise is okay. All of the other people are lying on the ground, mostly dead. This is just another example of how these people ruin everything they get near.
Yeah. It's the ending of this episode is so deeply unsatisfying compared to what they thought they were filming.
This is now Black Bolt and Medusa. They get together, reunited, and they kiss, and we're supposed to care.
Yeah, and you just can't. Because you still don't really know these people at all after 4 hours.
You don't believe in them for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
going to lose another 500,000.
Yes.
Before this episode's over.
There's no way. I mean, I can't. I don't know what the network execs had to think as these episodes were coming off the assembly line, and they were like, "Well, yes. I guess this is what we're going to air." We thought we were getting,
we're
getting like the Winter Soldier, but this is apparently what we're going to get.
You know what? They're looking at it and they're like, "Well, at least we still have Modern Family."
Right.
That might be on like season 7 or whatever, but like, hey, at least we got that. Yeah, this is dark. And then they pick up Locust. They pick up the echolocating girl. And they carry her over and they put her in the trunk. She's gasping for breath because she got knocked over by this gas explosion. And they put her in the trunk.
Which I'm
And
sure
they
made
drive
sense in
away.
the writer's room at the time.
And they drive away. But Mortis is still alive, obviously. And then Orin is going to come back as well. So I was trying to figure this out. And I realized, like, oh, they don't have the money to audition any more actors. We've already done... The casting service is done. We can't actually lose people. So we're going to kill people, and then they're still going to come back anyway because we just don't have the money for more actors.
And
that is episode 4.
That is episode 4. We haven't really talked much about the kid who can see visions.
You said this last time at exactly the same point. In exactly the same point in the episode, you're like, "Oh, what about Bernaja?"
Yeah,
I understand.
He's
why,
constantly around, but
he's there a lot.
There's no thing he does to actually. I guess later on he starts driving kind of the stuff, but it's part of the non-narrative that is what's going on with Maximus, where he's kind of running around like a lunatic going like, tell me I'm going to be king. I'm king. I'm great. And it's this poor kid who I think I said last time he'd won some like forensic competition or something in high school. Like I Googled him to see like, who is this guy? Cause this is it for him for acting credits.
Oh, really? Oh, this is his only acting job?
Yeah.
Aw.
And it's one of the reasons I started noticing they were doing reshoots because he's young here. He's like 17 or 18, and he looks noticeably older, and his hair is shaggier in some other shots.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so they did some stuff with him.
They absolutely must have. And then the other thing is like the guy who plays Mortis. I don't know if he was like. I'm sure he was all voiceover, but whoever
his
lines. He's in a different show. Like, as much as I'll complain about, like, everybody always kind of, like, everyone's dead serious and everyone has to be upset and act like their underwear is crusty all the time. Like, he's, hey, buddies, what's going on? I'm Mortis. Like, they decided he was going to be like, that Deadpool was popular. Let's see what we can do with this Mortis.
Right, yeah.
Like, I kind of get it, but it's like everything you've set him up of him being like totally miserable and locked in a room and everything else does not feed the idea of a guy who then pops out and is like cracking wise and like, of all the people to like, someone in this should have had a sense of humor, maybe Gorgon.
Yeah.
Not just
but
Louis.
For it to be Mortis is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Also, did you see Peacemaker?
Yeah.
You see Peacemaker?
Yeah.
Mortis reminds me of Vigilante. Like, guy in a mask saying funny things that are funnier because it's a guy in a mask. But not as well. Like you know, Vigilante in Peacemaker is hilarious.
Yeah.
And Mortis wants to be and absolutely is not. I mean, it's like I'm saying, like, you're totally right. We haven't talked about it, but like, yeah, Mortis is supposed to be the other funny character. And I appreciate Louise so much because she actually is funny. I couldn't give a shit about Mortis.
He's one of those guys, funny. He's like Flora. If he's not on screen, I'm not like, hey,
who even what's
going on with Mortis? Yeah, like every time Flora would appear, I'd be like, oh, she didn't get killed yet.
Yeah.
That was literally the only thought I had. Yeah. So she's a girl with kind of whitish hair.
By the way, like Flora and Locust look very similar. Well, I think they're both long hair girls.
They are, and one of the problems this show had was they had the brilliant idea to have everybody dress exactly alike from add-on. Like everyone's basically wearing rejects from Star Trek Next Generation. Like it's And Krypton did the same thing. For some reason, we all live in concrete slabs and we all wear all black all the time. It's like, dude, your eyes would be dying for color. Everyone there would be wearing like crazy swirly tie-dye shit, which the real Inhumans do. Like they're all purple and green and
whatever. Yeah,
they're all
you're right. That all these
colors.
people, the whole genetic council, like everybody, it's all gray. They have these like really gray robes to match the gray walls of their gray civilization.
Yeah, and that's what the peasants wear, and then that's It's like you guys are just hate color, apparently.
Because you've forgotten how television works, and it's a visual medium, and it would be a great idea for you to give us something to look at.
Yeah.
No. Nope. Bronaja is the kid's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like looking through my notes. I was like, I know I wrote down his name somewhere. But yeah, like they make a big deal about Bronaja being able to see the future, and he gives Maximus some little like glimpses of the future. But none of that is actually like super important for this show, and so we have not discussed it. But listeners, stay tuned. Next week, we're going to talk about episodes 5 and 6, and at the end of that, once again, Ryan's going to say, we haven't talked about that kid, so just stay tuned for that, for the now traditional moment at the end of the show, where Ryan reminds us that we have not talked about this character, who is not a very interesting character.
We're going to, like, in a year, we're going to be watching, God knows, like Ghost Rider 2, and I'm going to still be like, right. What about that kid?
What about Bronaja, though? What about Maximus's little, like, fortune teller dude?
Yeah. And by the way, every time he's on screen, it's a reminder, whoever the actor is who plays Maximus must have been, like, 3 apples high, because everybody is taller than him. And it was just like, could you guys have not found one actor who was like 5'10" to play Maximus? Yeah. But whatever.
So actually, for an ending for this episode, thank you so much for listening. I believe the exciting thing that we have offered them at the ending is that you said that we're still going to be making podcasts a year from now.
Well, so
I think we are too.
I'm not going to say anything else about what we talked about earlier.
I accept. You and I we're married now. You and I are going to be making podcasts a year from now. Very exciting. Thank you all for listening. Superheroes every day. Outside of our bromance, superheroeseveryday.com. Please come if you have enjoyed this episode and anything. God bless you for listening to this. I love you. That's what we're saying.
Excited. You know what I'm excited about with this is we may be some of the only people who actually, in all of the podcast universe, watched and talked about all of Inhumans. We could become.
I know this is going to be the definitive conversation about Marvel's Inhumans. Thank you very much, everybody. We love you. If you are still listening,
yes, you
are our absolute favorites, and let us know. Leave a message, and we will tell you how much we love you.
If you also send pictures of yourself dressed as an Inhuman, we will really, really love you. Yeah.
So there you go. Our love comes with some strings attached. Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
This has been fantastic. Please visit Superheroes Every Day, and thank you. And we will be back to talk about episodes 5 and 6.
Bye.
Bye.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies. You've got to be kind.